because I could not stop for death. He kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove. He knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too, for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Taking a comfortable seat, just letting your hands rest, relaxed on top of your thighs if that feels comfortable. Setting yourself in a position of openness, receptiveness. And then letting all the silt just fall to the bottom of the glass. I love that image. Sometimes the silt is all stirred up. That's interesting too, watching that fall. It takes longer. And sometimes the silt is already falling before you start watching. And it doesn't take very long at all. It's a moment like this that you feel that you are a glass, but that you're a glass at the bottom of the ocean. And that the boundary between you and all that is water outside of you is very thin. And then straightening the back, lengthening the neck just a little. And feeling all the muscles in the face relaxing around the eyes and the jaw and the throat. Placing your awareness in your forehead, right at the center. As if you could feel a little heat where your awareness is resting. And then breathing just a little more deeply. 4 counts in with a pause at the top. And 5 counts out. And as you're coming down with that 5 counts, just imagining the doors of the heart opening, the drawbridge coming down. And there are no warriors protecting what's in there. Just a clear view of the heart for the next half an hour. And if it's a little scary what's in there right now, you will know where to stand on that bridge or whether to walk right in. But the bridge is going nowhere. For once, just as an experiment, you're going to sit here open. And then feeling the belly relax, which is where we put all of our defendedness. And the feet flat and firm on the ground. So that we're here, we're in it now. We can enjoy the spaciousness of this moment. Take a second to dedicate the next 2 minutes of your practice to somebody who's struggling right now with a fear or an urgency or an emergency. Breathing in and bearing some of that fear and urgency with them or for them for 4 counts. And then a pause so that in the forge of the heart, you can transmute that into compassion. And then breathing all the way out, breathing out to 5. Just feeling the stillness of that silt when it finally rests and the emptiness that's possible. The space between one thought and the next. I think that space is the beautiful thing that Dickinson is describing here. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove. He knew no haste. And I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun. Or rather, he passed us. The dews grew quivering and chill. For only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling in the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Wow, I'm the lucky one today who gets to say that out loud. I had an experience earlier this week where I was passing along a list of items on a protocol for students who are in trouble. And for years, we've had issues with students and anxiety, especially in the last 10 years. The anxiety levels of our students have gone through the roof. And often what we'll do is sort of just react in the moment and try our best and send them to the help that we have available. But having this list, this protocol, if the student says this, if the student does that, the student feels this, then do that. Having that list tacked on my wall immediately made me feel better. And that's the power of the protocol. I experienced this years ago when I first learned the acronym HALT. Before you do anything, it's instructed often in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Before you do anything, make sure that you're not hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And that is informing the decision. If all of those are off the table, then you'll probably make the better decision. So HALT is about this little pause that we even see in the poem here. And of course, Martin Luther King taught his students and demonstrators about the precepts of nonviolent direct action and the ways that you have to prepare yourself for anything that might happen so that you will make the right action when the time comes. For a Buddhist, the 5 mindfulness trainings are a kind of protocol that instruct don't kill and don't steal and don't lie and don't exploit others sexually and don't indulge in distractions like abuse of alcohol or drugs or too many screens. So in this poem, we have a kind of protocol at work and a kind of HALT instruction that's being passed on to us. What's happening in the first stanza is that the speaker is communicating a rule that I can't go to death. I can't go and woo death. Death has to come and woo me. And it is a kind of wooing because the way that she's talking about death is like the ways that we talk about a lover, someone coming to our door. And then in the next stanza, there is this wonderful day out, a Sunday ride with the one who's courting you. They slowly drove, they knew no haste, and she had put away her labor and her leisure too. Her only job in this encounter with death is to sit back and be open. This is the only active thing that's really talked about in the poem. I had put away my labor and my leisure too. The rest is just being carried by this process. In the next stanza, it's as if a whole life passes before their eyes. It starts with school and the children, and then growth and emergence, the fields of gazing grain, and then old age, the setting sun. And right in the middle, there is this moment of awe. So we're going from a kind of confusion, what do I do? What's the proper role? To openness. I'm just going to let this process take its course. And then to this awe where they freeze. And instead of passing the sun is now passing them. and they've entered this eternal space. And the poem gets very quiet. It's like a marriage. And the dews grew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown. It's as if her funeral clothes in the poem are like a nightgown on a honeymoon. And they pause before this house that's like a swelling in the ground. It's the grave, but it's also the house that you're going to live in now with your beloved. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. So the top of the grave is the roof, and they're going to live underneath on the first floor. But what I love about the poem is how it ends with this: "'Tis centuries and yet feels shorter than the day," which is exactly how we talk about our best friend and beloved at the end of a long marriage. We think, wow, it took forever, and yet it lasted a second. So she's talking about this whole experience with this death, this being carried by a lover, and entering into this relationship that ultimately is leading her into grace. There's a feeling of thankfulness and gratitude in this last stanza, it would seem. Feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. All of the forms of astonishment that I like to talk about when reading a poem are here: the bewilderment, the openness, the awe, leading into that feeling of grace, like, why me? Why should I be the lucky one to have had this experience? It's a very romantic poem, because in Romanticism, it was common to take the thing that has been vilified or most feared and turn it into your best friend. Walt Whitman did the same thing with his spider. I don't know if you remember, 3 years ago, we did Noiseless Patient Spider. And in that poem, this spider figure, which is this horror insect, becomes Whitman's soul. And this is Dickinson's version. These poems were written 5 years apart. It's part of the transcendental vision that's supposed to be taking what's out there that we've turned into an it and an other into a thou. The idea with transcendentalism was that if we really knew how interconnected we were, we would follow those 5 mindfulness trainings automatically. And it wouldn't be hard to know, back to Alcoholics Anonymous and what you learn in the rooms there. It wouldn't be hard to know what the next right thing is. You often hear, just do the next right thing. This is her encountering death, turning around and looking at it with paradoxical intention and just saying, okay, I'll just do the next right thing. Let's go for this ride. Because I could not stop for death. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove. He knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun. Or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet, only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling in the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Going back into that receptive space. term I used was paradoxical intention, which is Viktor Frankl from Man's Search for Meaning. The idea that if we turn around and look at the thing that we fear and meet it as a teacher in the phenomenal world or as a friend, and really embrace it, as scary as it is, face to face, its power will just disappear. So the question is, what is your protocol? What holds you up in those moments of emergency? What is it that helps you to find the next right thing? For me, it's been a simple thing that I say when the worst happens. Sometimes it takes me longer to get there, and sometimes it's instantaneous. But what I say is, thank you for this experience and for the release of this experience. Thank you for this experience as a teacher. And thank you for its release, because in a changing world, this too will pass. For Dickinson, it was all about death. I mean, she was terrified of death because it appears in all her poems, but she's constantly making death a friend. Whitman says, did you ever suppose it was lucky to be born? I tell you, it's lucky to die. Thank you for this life. And thank you for the release of this life. You could go right down the aggregates. Thank you for this body, the sensual experience of being in a world where we can see and hear and feel things with the tips of our fingers. And thank you for the eventual release from this body. Thank you for the storm of emotion, being able to feel and to feel that I can feel that sense of awareness we call consciousness. And thank you for the release from emotion. In sunyata, at the heart of everything, the emptiness of separation. Thank you for my thoughts. For ideas and imaginings. For poetry and science. And thank you for the release from my thoughts. To step back and see that the mind secretes thoughts like the mouth secretes saliva, as they say. Those gratitudes, we enter a state of grace. We back our way into it. We enter a state of communion where there are no dualities. This is Thomas Merton. The deepest level of communication is not communication, but communion. It's wordless, it's beyond words. It's beyond speech, it's beyond concept. Not that we discover a new unity, we discover an older unity. My dear ones, we are already one. But we imagine that we're not. And what we have to recover is our original unity. What we have to be is what we are. Poem 479 by Emily Dickinson. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove. He knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too, for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Thank you, everyone.
Each time is the best time.
Each time.
Each time is better.
Voice, it's the best time, Grace.
That's the definition of eternity.